3 years ago, I set myself a challenge to see if I could save myself money by growing food in the tiny front garden of the former council house where I live, here in the West Midlands, UK. When I say tiny, I mean tiny. The garden is only 3 metres by 3 metres, and over the course of 2023, I filmed every stage of the process. I recorded every single expense, but crucially, recorded each harvest set against the current supermarket prices for the food I was harvesting. I told the story of that first year in a video that was watched by hundreds of thousands of people, and it certainly generated some strong reactions, some positive and some less so. I'll get to that in a few moments. I showed how I'd built this garden from scratch, building the space with longevity and low maintenance at the centre of my plans. It concluded by showing the modest saving that I generated from the garden, despite the initial outlay of setting up the garden. People seemed surprised by this. Many comments suggested that I should have used free or recycled alternatives. But now, as I record this video 3 years later, I hope you understand exactly why I built this garden the way I did. This growing space is for the long term. This video shows the progress 3 years after the project began. Am I still using the garden? What worked, and more interestingly, what didn't? Did it continue to save me money? And were those savings exaggerated by the rising food prices and the lack of initial investment costs that I had to make during the first year of the garden's life? It's safe to say that life threw me a few curveballs during the last 3 years, as you're about to see, as I evolved and the garden evolved with me. This story isn't scripted any more than a seed's growth can be predicted or mapped. It's raw, rugged, and honest. At the end of the first year, I was feeling quite pleased with myself. The garden had managed to save me a modest amount of money each month. I'd proved the point that I was trying to make. We eat a lot of salad, and throughout the growing season and into winter in that first year, my tiny front garden had broken my dependence on bags of supermarket salad. It was providing me with a real abundance of quick turnaround crops, and it was actually changing what we ate. As the temperature plummeted at the end of my first season, the garden was still incredibly productive. The raised bed covers that we had added a few months earlier were doing an incredible job in making the salad crops grow. Cool weather varieties such as kale and spinach continued to be harvested as Christmas came and went, but the mini greenhouses were disproportionately productive. All the raised beds in my garden are no-dig beds and filled with a method known as hugelkultur, which essentially means filling the bottom 2/3 of the beds with organic material that will break down and feed the beds over time. So at the beginning of the second year, I had to top up the beds with a thin layer of compost, giving back to soil health. This wasn't an issue because throughout the first year, I'd been filling my compost bin with spent crops and waste cardboard. 9 months on, I had a plentiful supply of compost to spread. It's a really lovely therapeutic job to do on a cold day, which was just as well because by February 2024, I was beginning to feel unwell. So many of you can relate to the worry of waiting for test results, and the gentle process of preparing, sowing, and potting on seedlings made the wait for test results feel a lot shorter. Nevertheless, I went into my second spring with renewed enthusiasm and very few expenses. I still had seeds remaining from the first spring. I reused all the pots I'd bought for the garden. Without the initial cost of building the garden, paying for bulk topsoil or raised beds, every crop that I harvested that spring felt like I'd accessed a cheat code. This garden was costing me hardly any money and very little time and effort. I was starting to learn which plants would enjoy growing in the garden, with its dappled shade throughout early spring and autumn. I focused even more on the quick turnaround crops: salad herbs, lettuce, beans and peas, all of which enjoyed the partial shade and were hugely productive. This garden simply would not stop producing broad beans, but it was absolutely fine because I couldn't stop eating them. The second spring flew by in a blur of life, growth, and almost daily harvests, and before I knew it, I was actually getting the results of the test I've been waiting for. I'd been diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I started to receive treatment, but I also had to radically redesign my growing plans. There were now certain plants, such as lettuce, that I couldn't comfortably eat as much as I did previously. Sitting in the sunshine on my June front garden, I began to redesign my plans. Little did I know it, but this diagnosis actually gave my garden a fresh lease of life. Many of the comments on the first video criticised the amount of space that I'd left between raised beds, but this was a deliberate and conscious choice, allowing me to add seasonal pots of herbs and companion planting around the plants in the raised beds as they rotated. Now as I redesigned the garden, these pots became filled with different varieties of mint and thyme. These were varieties of herbs perfect for using to make mint tea. I want to choose my words carefully. I'm not a medical professional, but drinking strong, fresh mint tea during this time really did make me feel better. Being forced to change my plans forced me to push the boat out and try new and exciting varieties. I tried growing strange and wonderful plants, not just the quick turnaround, lucrative salad crops that I'd focused on during the first 18 months of growth. Varieties like chard can be really expensive to purchase, and I'd fallen in love with a variety called peppermint chard. That was planted in midsummer and filled every gap in this garden for the next 12 months. Its bright stem looked amazing through the winter too. While I began treatment and got my illness under control, there was another challenge facing the garden. Summer 2024 was globally the hottest on record, and in the UK we had weeks without rain. My garden was beginning to experience drought conditions, but the crops that I planted weren't suffering despite my irregular watering. At the very start of building this garden, I decided to build raised beds rather than plant into the ground. The soil was very thin, lacking in depth, as there was a huge layer of hardcore, possibly dating back to the construction of the house buried just underneath the surface of the garden. So many comments on the first video asked, why have you wasted money on raised beds rather than planting into the ground? And I think summer 2024 showed why I'd made the right choice. The raised beds filled with organic material held water. I mulched around my plants with the clippings of herb prunings, which preserved water but also had companion planting benefits in distracting local pests. The productivity continued into the second winter. I was feeling much better in myself, and as my own work slowed, I loved regularly harvesting crops of herbs, chard, kale, late crops of fruit and lettuce from the garden. Once again, I kept track of harvest and expenses, treating the garden like a micro business. I'd been distracted for periods earlier in the year, but I still managed to take a supermarket value from the garden that averaged £12 each week throughout the year. That added up to a saving, taking into account expenses, of £570. So many people had commented that growing food isn't just about saving money, and I totally agree with that. But this garden was proving a point, loud and clear. The third spring dawned, and it was actually a struggle to decide which of the many long-lived crops such as chard I needed to remove from the garden in order to plant out fresh crops. Last year's change of plans meant that I was gardening with freedom, trying new things just to see if they worked. There were a few minor disasters. I realised quickly that I didn't get enough sunshine in the garden to grow peppers, for example. And sweet corn, which I proudly grew, it turns out I wasn't able to eat. But I still had so much fun trying. My work was starting to get very, very busy. As the third year really got going, I needed this garden to do what it had been set up to do. I built the front garden to be a low maintenance space. The hugelkultur beds kept watering to a minimum. But as I went into the third spring, I needed this garden to look after itself. I was working 80 hours a week doing my proper job. And this garden stepped up to the challenge. Perennial alpine strawberries gave me enormous harvests through the early spring and into summer, spreading across a raised bed with reckless abandon. I was getting better at timing each crop, and in that third year managed to get subsequent batches of peas, one early and one later sowing. We were starting to have fun, looking to see which vegetables were expensive in the supermarket, and planning to sow more of those expensive varieties. The garden didn't match with any show garden design, but it matched with our dinner plans, and that's what matters. We experienced the courgette glut phenomenon that many gardeners experienced and cheerfully gave them away to all of our family and friends. We had adapted our lives to allow this garden to provide for us. I was gradually allowing more staple foods such as salad back into my diet, but also supplementing my harvests with more exciting crops such as fruits and unusual herbs. that made my morning herbal tea a bit more interesting. And now here's the ugly truth. I was so busy with work during the third year that my record keeping fell behind. I didn't spend any more than £30 on seeds for the garden in 2025. Many of the crops were perennial and my harvests were regular and heavy. But if I told you an exact figure, I'd be guessing. Harvests were certainly heavier than the second year, and food prices continued to rise here in the UK. Which brings me to why I made this video, that I've spent months editing and re-editing as events in the world unfolded. I don't think that gardening is just a hobby that exists separately to the rest of our lives. To grow food is to engage with the world around you, but also allows your daily life to influence your growing. I experienced challenges during the last 3 years, but globally there are certainly bigger challenges to come. The atmosphere of crisis and increasing food prices following the invasion of Ukraine originally prompted me to begin this project, and following events in early 2026, global food prices look set to rise again. I don't think there's ever been a more important time to start growing your own food. I won't ever become self-sufficient in a tiny garden like this, but I've reduced the cost of the weekly supermarket shop and changed our diets for the better. It's humbling to think that over 500,000 people have seen the story of this 3 metre by 3 metre front garden in the former council house where I live. And if it's inspired just one of you to start growing food, then I think it's been a huge success.